Tony Holmes' mouth is wired shut. His jawbone was shattered by the bullet of an unknown man who entered this convenience store, killed the clerk Larry Dominguez, age 22, and wounded Holmes.
A black man came into the store, and he poked a gun in my back and told me to go on to the bathroom, and that's where he shot me and Larry. And then after that, he left out of the bathroom, and it was about 5 minutes after he shot us. Larry left out of the bathroom, and then I heard another shot.
Holmes says he remained in the bathroom for nearly 15 minutes after he heard the bell on the front door ring, signaling the assailant's departure. He says when he did come out, he found Dominguez dead on the floor, and he went to call for help. Police suspect the same men involved in the Holmes shooting also shot and killed 24-year-old Andy Adams at this narrow lane road 7-Eleven the same night. Holmes says his doctors tell him he may never fully recover from some of the nerve damage caused by the bullet. Holmes says he's no longer very frightened.
I was scared for about 2 or 3 days, but after that I'm not scared no more, unless he came up to the door.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
State Conservation Department Commissioner John McMillan believes it's a good idea if Alabama follows the Mississippi Conservation Department's example to acquire its own hunting and fishing lands. But McMillan admits there'd be problems. One would be competing with the State Mental Health Department and Prison Commission, who also want state land. Another is garnering legislative support to finance the real estate. McMillan says part of the windfall oil lease money could help buy the land, but he says getting some of the money won't be easy.
But the real problem in the second part of this twofold approach is going to be to get the money appropriated to fund this type effort. And that's going to be very difficult.
McMillan says buying state land would be a sound future investment to continue protecting the state's hunting and fishing game. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News. This isn't your ordinary house because nobody really lives here, but inside are people who belong to the statewide Democratic Party. The members are currently preparing for the grand opening of their new Democratic offices and the 1982 election, though some members say preparations should have begun long ago. The offices aren't completely furnished, but when the restoration project is finished, party members say it'll be a home away from home for all Democrats, and that's one of the reasons the house, located in the Cottage Hills Historic District, was selected.
There are many Democrats who are interested in an old house and restoration project, but I think it makes sense for the Democratic Party, the oldest party in the United States, well, as a matter of fact, the oldest party in the world, to be involved in historic preservation site. As you know, this is a house of offices as well as a house for meetings, receptions, parties, workshops.
Party members admit it'll take considerable organization to beat the Republicans next year, but they say they plan to organize every precinct in the state to accomplish their goal, a Democratic victory in 1982. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
The songs of the man called the King of Rock and Roll once could be heard on the airwaves a lot, but that day may be past. An announcer for WLSQ Radio, Craig Kilpatrick, says requests for Elvis music are not very common anymore.
I don't know why a lot of younger people don't go back and enjoy the anthology. I know that the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and almost every contemporary rock artist for the 1960s and 1970s looked upon Elvis Presley as a mentor.
However, Kilpatrick says Elvis is still very popular with people over 25 years of age. The production director for WHHY Radio, Connor Vernon, agrees that the true Elvis fans are still around.
Well, it's been like 4 years since he passed away, but I think the true Elvis fan you can't get enough of Elvis Presley. I know we get tremendous requests for him all the time throughout the year.
And even though he says most Elvis fans have been around for a while, he says his station does get requests for Elvis music from younger people.
Some of them do. You know, there's a certain, some of his songs sound today like the music of today. And you get requests, especially from the curious, I think, a lot of the young teens.
Vernon Station will air an Elvis tribute show tomorrow, an opportunity for those who've never heard Elvis music to do so, and a chance for the true Elvis fans to remember the King. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. The songs of the man called the King of Rock and Roll once could be heard on the airwaves a lot, but that day may be past. An announcer for WLSQ Radio, Craig Kilpatrick, says requests for Elvis music are not very common anymore.
Very seldom do we get an Elvis Presley song requested. I'd say maximum. Boy, that's real tough to say. Hardly at all. Once a month, if that. And I'm talking about.
However, Kilpatrick says Elvis is still very popular with people over 25 years of age. The production director for WHHY Radio, Connor Vernon, agrees that the true Elvis fans are still around.
Well, it's been like 4 years since he passed away, but I think the true Elvis fan, you can't get enough of Elvis Presley. I know we get tremendous requests for him all the time throughout the year here.
And even though he says most Elvis fans have been around for a while, he says his station does get requests for Elvis music from younger people.
Some of them do. You know, there's a certain, some of his songs sound today like the music of today. And you get requests, especially from the curious, I think, a lot of the young teens.
Vernon Station will air an Elvis tribute show tomorrow, an opportunity for those who never heard Elvis to do so, and a chance for the true Elvis fans to remember the King. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
A black man came into the store, and he poked a gun in my back and told me to go on to the bathroom, and that's where he shot me and Larry. And then after that, he left out of the bathroom, and it was about 5 minutes after he shot us. Larry left out of the bathroom, and then I heard another shot. I was scared for about 2 or 3 days, but after that, I'm not scared no more, unless he came up to the door.
Hey! Too high, Lenny. Too high. Hello, man. Hey! Count.
Our freshman class was about like I expected it to be. I felt like we had some freshmen coming in that were certainly going to help us, not because, I don't think because of any rare exceptional ability on our freshman team, but I think it's more or less because of lack of ability in some areas on our varsity. I'd rather have a situation where the freshmen were not going to be playing at all, but in our case, we're going to use the freshmen, and I think we've got some that are definitely going to help us, because you never know how they'll react in the real intense competitive situations as freshmen until they've been there.
First thing, we have those 3 days, you know, in pads. We hope to go over not only our offense and defense, but all the time-consuming things, you know, like giving us safety, onside kick, different things, and get that behind us. Then when we go in the pad, we go right in our game plan, and like you say, work up to 4 or 5 days before then, and we have to go play.
Coach, a lot of these players, you already know they can play, so does this mean that you'll be giving some of the youngsters a better look?
No, not now. We're going to give the ones that we think going to play a better look. We'll have to take that as time goes on, because we're not going to take time with only 3 weeks to experiment. We're going to go with people we feel like can help us, can play.
This is Valentina Edelman. She's a young Soviet Jew who's been living in the United States since 1979. She's been in Montgomery for just over a year. She came to the U.S. knowing no one, not knowing where she would live or what she would do to support herself. But she came anyway, leaving the Soviet Union behind forever. Not only did she leave her country, but also her family. She did so knowing that she might never see them again. Valentina, who speaks English fluently, now lives with what she calls her second family, Joe and Mary Buzzard and their 9-year-old son, Jeff. She's been living with Joe and Mary since she came to Montgomery. At age 22, Valentina is pursuing a career in medicine, which she began in Russia, but was unable to continue because of Jewish persecution. Valentina works here at St. Margaret's Hospital, doing what she enjoys most.
I like to work with the people. I like to feel that people feel better after the treatment. I like to help people, and especially I think it is a big joy when people are going home and they feel so much better, and I feel satisfied that I help people.
What is the reaction when you walk into a patient's room and you start talking, and right away they know you're not from Alabama? So what is the reaction?
Well, people usually ask me, where did you come from? You have a funny accent. And sometimes when I have already a response from the patient, I say that I'm from New York, Brooklyn. Or if the patient is serious, I just say that I came from the Soviet Union. And
what do they say? Do you ever have any negative reactions to that?
Oh, no, it wasn't a single negative reaction.
Right now, she's in nursing and hopes to continue in medicine,
because,
and perhaps soon enroll in medical
almost
school.
Everybody asks me questions.
Dan Black,
no
WSFA TV News.
You've been over here now a couple of...
The dedication ceremony for the $100,000 expansion was brief, but the effects of the new addition are expected to be long-lasting. Headmaster John Kaysen says the additional room is needed because of the tremendous growth in enrollment since the academy was founded 12 years ago. Mayor Falmer used the occasion to emphasize the importance of quality education.
You know, people say that education is expensive. You think that's expensive, try ignorance. And this is the thing that we need to constantly come back to, that we live in a competitive world, whether we like it or not. We need to be more competitive in our education. We need to make sure that our young people get quality education.
Falmer says private schools play a vital role in developing a well-informed public. Then the ribbon was cut and the crowd toured the new section. When construction is completed September 1st, the space will be used for a new cafeteria and 3 new classrooms. The school is also planning to build 2 new tennis courts. Last summer, enrollment in private schools was down nearly 10%, but Kaysen says that's no longer the case. With the additional 4,000 square feet of space, he expects the school's current enrollment of 275 students to double in the next 3 years. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Away from what you're thinking, so I congratulate the group that got this together. Opportunity, I think, to receive in depth without interference. You know, you're in one.
Okay, if you look at the treatment, and what I'm
first real opportunity, I think, to receive.
Well, the forestry industry is geared to the home building industry. It's geared to a lot of other industries that are dependent on moderate to low interest rates. And the interest rates problem is killing the housing business, killing farming, and in my judgment, Reagan's economic program can't work in a high interest atmosphere, and he's got to address that problem and turn it around.
McDaniel will serve the remaining 2 years and 7 months of her 3-year sentence on supervised probation. Among other conditions of her probationary term is public service work at an unnamed facility during the week and 6 hours each weekend after she finds regular employment. The former Public Service Commission president was also ordered to repay the $80.25 she claimed for reimbursement from the state of Alabama after being reimbursed by the independent telephone company. After the hearing, Mrs. McDaniel made these comments.
I am very, very pleased to be home, Norman. I think it's just wonderful that I can be with my family and can help them as much as I can. My husband is ill and my mother is 83 and has 5% vision. I'm fortunate enough to have my grandchildren this summer, and I'm just pleased as peaches.
Are you going to go to work?
Yes, I'm going to work as
How
soon as
soon?
I can. I hope sometime by the first of the year.
McDaniel's future employment plans are not firm at this time, but she says she's considering several offers, one as a manager of a local apartment complex. However, she did tell Judge Gordon during today's hearings that she is expected to have a full-time job by October 1st. It was also agreed here today between Mrs. McDaniel, her attorney, the judge, and the probation officer that if she serves her supervisory probation satisfactorily, it may be changed to unsupervised probation. How long that will take is not known at this time. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the County Courthouse.
County residents have been calling some commissioners expressing concern about whether the county mosquito program will continue. Commissioner John Knight says he's got numerous calls and says he's also concerned with the county's position regarding the program. Knight says it puts the commission in a bad spot if there isn't a spraying program, especially with the city planning to implement its own. That prompted Commissioner Frank Bray to say the commission is going on record assuring county residents they'll do all they can to continue the service provided funds are available. The City-County Health Department was appropriated money, but says it wasn't enough. The mosquito service couldn't be implemented. Knight then expressed concern with the Health Department's use of the appropriated money, saying it may have been used for something else. The commissioners say they plan to meet with city officials to discuss the mosquito spraying program, saying it makes no sense to have a duplicate city-county program. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
The Special Education Trust Fund budget adopted by the legislature last week did two things. It funded teacher insurance an extra $3 million, and it took most of that money, $2.4 million, from teachers' retirement. In a specially called meeting of the Retirement Systems Board of Control, the vote was 7-2 to tell the legislature to put that $2.4 million back or face a lawsuit. Board Chairman Dr. Paul Hubbard said because the amount of the money recommended for retirement must by law be fully funded, the board should show the legislature that it would take them to court. But State Finance Director Rex Rayner told Hubbard he felt the action was premature. Rayner says it'll be mid-October before the retirement systems knows whether that $2.4 million shortfall will underfund them or not. Hubbard contends it's the precedent, not the amount he's concerned about. Hubbard also wants the legislature to reinsert the word estimated in a line relating to retirement funding, saying it's paramount to leaving flexibility in how much a retirement will actually receive. Hubbard says the word estimated has historically been included. The Board of Control's motion to go to court would not take effect until after the legislature fails to make those two changes, and should the legislature make those changes, the threat of a lawsuit would apparently be dropped. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
In this sesquicentennial year of the University of Alabama, I use this office. Teacher, proven administrator, I hereby confer upon you the presidency of the University of Alabama with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertain. We look forward to joining with the faculty, 3,000 faculty, 18,000 students, 100,000 alumni, the Board of Trustees, of which you are ex officio chairman, Mr. Gov.
We also have Camille Duvall, one of the fine women skiers who will be at this tournament. And Camille is a holder of 12 in Florida, and we have a few of the members who have at least expressed an interest in coming up here and putting on a barefoot show.
We've got all the top skiers that aren't at the Worlds, it looks like, coming anyway. This number 2, this Mike Ferraro trick, he was, I think, 3rd in the world team placement at the team trials this year, and he just barely missed going to the Worlds by 1 spot. He tricks over 7,000 points, and last year the trick skiing world record was 7,300, I believe it was. So.
I'm disappointed in the ones that could have been in condition and not, but some of them have been conning us around here now for a good while, but you can't con that sunshine out there and that clock watch. You can't con them. You might fool me, but you can't fool that. And I feel like that they will. I think we have some real fine people. It's about telling today. But the thing that worries me about this team, he won't be. My feeling on it is that I'm all for it, 100%. But I don't make the decision. I've talked briefly with Dr. Thomas about it, and I think he was, I'm not talking for him, I think he was a leader in the conference he just left. But anyway, I have a meeting with him next week, and then any comment about it had to come from him.
I'm just trying to make the team. I came out here just, not expecting too much because of the way they, walk-ons have it, and things really looked up for me. A few people got injured this spring, and I got a few chances, unexpected chances, and things went really well. But as far as my goals, I'm just trying to make the team right now.
It's really got to come within yourself. You got to go out there and, motivate yourself to get better. It's 95, 100 degrees this summer, but you still got to go out there and do it.
Well, I think, anytime you miss spring practice, especially when there's a changeover in coaching staffs and offensive philosophy, it's going to hurt you. And I've been trying to catch up on it, and only a few weeks will tell.
You really can't recreate those decision-making points in the summertime, can you?
No, sir, it's hard to do. You can just study and try to be as best prepared as possible and hope things work out your way.
Starting out, do you consider yourself the #1 quarterback?
I don't know if I do or not. I don't know. I wish I could. But I don't know, after last spring, I guess if I was #1, they kept things I've read and things they've said was because, the other quarterbacks got hurt and they didn't get enough playing time. They really don't know. So I imagine they'll start all 3 of us right together.
I wasn't satisfied with the life in the Soviet Union a long time ago when I was a little girl. And there are many reasons, many things which made me to decide to leave.
Valentina's family members who remain in the Soviet Union have been trying to leave for several years, but each time they've applied, permission from the Soviet government has been denied.
Do you miss the Soviet Union?
Well, I miss the beauty of the Soviet Union because it's a very beautiful and interesting country. It's one of the oldest countries in the world, and the history is very interesting, and I miss that. But I didn't miss the life there.
Tell me about your family that's still over there.
I have my sister and her family. She's married and she has a child, so it is 3 very dear to me people. And of course I have the dearest person in the world, it is my mother, who is still there. My mother is 53 years old. My sister is 33 years old. Her husband is 38. And my nephew is 9 years old.
Valentina says because her mother, sister, and brother-in-law have asked to leave,
yes,
their lives have changed and they're under constant surveillance.
As soon as they applied to leave the country, they lost their jobs. So presently, right now, neither of them work, and It's very difficult to live without any money coming in. My sister and her family is watched by KGB, and all the telephones are monitored. All the mail can be opened.
Joe and Mary Buzzard, Val's American family, first became involved with Val's family members 2 years ago.
We know what is happening in the Soviet Union, but how many of us are willing to do something? I wrote to the Alabama Council for Soviet Jews, and I met with its chairperson, Babette Wampole, and she gave me the address of the learners. I wrote to them for several months before I finally got a reply.
Mary says the learners are paying a high price and requesting permission to leave the USSR, but she says they're convinced their efforts will be worthwhile in the end. Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
The suit filed on behalf of Raines says he was punished by some of his superior officers following the broadcast about the police department. Raines' lawyer, Thomas Goggin, says his client's subsequent dismissal was a violation of Raines' right to free speech.
In a nutshell, Mr. Raines' complaint alleges that his constitutional rights of free speech and to due process of law were violated by harassment and ultimate dismissal from his employment with the Prattville Police Department for what was suspected to be his involvement with a news expose which was critical of the police department.
The suit says Raines was harassed and intimidated by some of his superiors and constantly questioned about any involvement in the newscast. The suit further claims that Raines was issued unjust and unwarranted reprimands, and his privacy was invaded by the use of electronic listening devices. The suit names as defendants, among others, the city of Prattville itself, the acting chief of police, Norris Champion, the assistant chief of police, the mayor, and several members of the personnel board. It asked that Raines be reinstated in his job and that he be awarded $570,000 in damages. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News at the federal courthouse.
And that one day he was working in there, and a man came in and said, "I want to buy that." Jonah was swallowed by the whale. The country are great today, but maybe not the problems in our. And both have had the. I think that he made the mistake in some cuts like Social Security, and we were able to, in effect, restore some of those cuts pertaining to Social Security. In the area of school lunch and some of the school programs, it hit Alabama at a particular hard time. With proration going on in Alabama, those cuts were, to me, from a viewpoint of looking at it as an Alabamian, not proper. Now, this is not to say that America is number two. I don't think we're in that category, but I don't think we're in a category where we can claim it we are undisputedly number one.
We had a petition the water board have elected that we feel that one of the members are sitting on the water board is illegally there, and we have filed a complaint in the court. And the hearing came before the judge this morning. The judge denied the motion to dismiss the case of which the water board filed a complaint on. They have 10 days now to come back with an answer to the judge's ruling.
Can you imagine a state institution that this legislature today is going to vote to give over $8 million to? Sending out a bunch of graduates that come over and have 86% failure rate. I don't think the people of Alabama are going to accept that. I don't believe they're going to continue wanting to spend $8 million of their money to run a school that doesn't bother educating anybody.
State senator. He's obviously grandstanding on an issue. He's not offering any solutions. All he's doing is there are problems in education just as there are everywhere else. But I think the answer to those problems are level-headed people sitting down and talking about them and not holding news conferences on the Capitol step to draw attention to themselves so they can run for political office somewhere.
Tommy Booth takes over as president of Brewer State Junior College November 1st, and assuming the presidency at Enterprise State Junior College is Joseph Talmadge. His appointment becomes effective October 1st. But the board postponed for the second time the presidential appointment at Bishop State Junior College in Mobile, a predominantly black institution. State School Superintendent Wayne Teague made no mention of when he'll recommend someone for the board's approval. Education officials say 20 candidates have applied for the job. Also today, AEA President Dr. Paul Hubbard asked board members to support the extra $60 a year increase in hospital medical insurance benefits for junior college and trade school educators. Hubbard says the increase amounts to $5.15 per month for two-year and trade school personnel and is on the same level as what K-12 educators receive. The board agreed to discuss the matter at September's meeting. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
President of the Montgomery Firefighters Association, Glenn Foshee, says the proposed raise isn't just compensation for the type of work they do. He says firemen work 56 hours a week and risk their lives daily. The base pay for a beginning fireman is $10,417. Added to that is $1,320 in annual hazardous duty pay for a total of $11,737. If the mayor's budget passes, a beginning fireman's salary will be just over $12,000.
There's a problem with people making ends meet. They don't have the money to take care of the basic necessity and maintain their homes and family without having a second job. It's just gotten to that kind of point.
Foshee says the low pay is also causing problems like low morale and excessive employee turnovers within the fire department. He says eventually these factors could affect the quality of fire service and public safety. Foshee says he realizes money is tight, but says he hopes there's some way the council can come up with more money for firemen. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
I am seriously considering seeking the office of governor next year and when the election time comes. And I'm doing those things that I think are necessary to be in a possible launch position in the event that I do seek the office. And that is making speeches around the state, visiting different groups, different people, shaking hands at the crossroads all over the place, and merely getting in launch position. But no decision has been made and none will be made for several months now.
Chief Sutherland says in addition to the proposed $400 a year pay raise, firefighters would get an additional $15 a month in hazardous duty pay and life insurance coverage equal to their salaries.
I doubt very seriously if there's very many men today that don't work on their off day or their wives work on their work also. And I'm not talking about just in the fire department. You go into any field and men and women, wives and husbands both are working. I think this is the economical situation. And as far as having enough money, you tell me somebody that does have enough money.
Chief Sutherland says morale isn't low in the fire department. He said morale was at one of its highest points just 7 months ago when firefighters participated in a local race. As for the high attrition rate, he says the department has lost 30 employees in the past year, but says not all of them left for higher salaries.
Some of them retired. I believe it was 18 retired. Some of them left for different fields of work. We had some to go back to school. I've had two to announce to me that they were resigning because of better paying jobs. So I think our attrition rate it is up just a little bit, but it's not all that high.
Chief Sutherland says even though many of the firefighters are young, they're all well trained and can adequately perform their jobs. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
Free trash pickup points again this week. Most people don't have any difficulty getting. I don't believe we've had a single complaint from that.
Sell parcel land, same farmer. In favor of or against Mr. Pinkston?
One for the inclusion of community action into the budget, and one for an addition in the appropriation to Montgomery County Department.
Right, completed office, either 01, approved by 150.
He proposes to take this money away from the drainage in the Newtown area.
the Indian people, old people, and I talk without sidewalls. He knows my feelings concerning sidewalks.
Put the figure $4,000 in that. $4,000.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion?
All of the procedures and all of the advertising and all.
Well, John Riley, of course, has been very helpful and active with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Of course, Mike is involved. John Hanna up in Albertville, of course, the New England Patriots now has been very active. John Stallworth, of course, up in the Pittsburgh area, but here in Huntsville area during the off season has also been active. Stedman Shealy, Stedman Shealy's another big plus. Keith Pugh has just come on staff with us in Birmingham, so
Alabama wideout.
Right, he's going to be a tremendous asset to the ministry.
And now our clients and our critics are saying that we ought to be more adept in communicating with our clients. That, as a matter of fact, our clients are saying that when they sue us for malpractice, that if we had talked to them a little bit better, explained that $10,000 bill and not just sent them $10,000 for legal services rendered, maybe we wouldn't get sued, or maybe they wouldn't be so unhappy with us. But anyhow, that's a fact of life. And along with that has come a demand for increased skill on the part of lawyers, not just knowledge of legal theories, and of course the number of legal theories has, quadrupled since many of you were in law school. Whole new areas of law have sprung up. And everybody is telling us at the law schools that we ought to attend to those educational needs.
To be a Jew and live inside the Soviet Union means persecution. Valentina Edelman says when she was born, she didn't know she was any different than any other child in Russia. But as she grew older, she soon found out what it meant to be a Soviet Jew.
Being a Jew, it's not safe to walk on the street.
What's an example? What would be an example?
I could, and it is true. It happened to me a few times. I'm walking along the street in the middle of the city, on the central street, and somebody can come to me and say some kind of nasty words, say, Jew, why do you live here, what are you doing here? Or even hit me, and it happened a few times that I'm coming home and crying and have bruises everywhere. When I was in the nursing school, in every group there was an agent of KGB. And you're afraid of everybody. You cannot say anything at all. You cannot say what you think. You cannot even think what you want to think, because you're afraid that you'll say one word to somebody, to your neighbor, to your teacher, to your best friend, and your best friend can be an agent of KGB.
The most important thing on Valentina's mind is getting her family out of the Soviet Union. With Joe and Mary helping her, she's optimistic that one day they will see each other again outside Russia.
I don't lose the hope, not at all. And I'm very optimistic, and I think that the more people will help us, the more things we'll be able to do together in order to help my family. So if I lose the hope, they'll never come.
What is the hardest part about being separated from your family? You're thousands of miles away. They're over there, and what do you think about? What is the hardest part to deal with?
Well, just not to see them, not to talk to them. It's very hard because our family is very, very close to each other, and like with my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, we share everything together, all the feelings, all the events, and everything. And
Mary says one of the learners' main reasons for leaving the Soviet Union is their 9-year-old son Igor, who has an eye disease which they feel could be better treated in the West. Mary's son Jeff, who is also 9 years old, has talked to Igor on the telephone and hopes one day to be able to meet his foreign friend face to face. Dan Black, WSFA TV News.
There was a beaming smile on Governor James' face this morning as he made some parting comments about the special session.
We're so excited about special sessions. We founded something. We love them.
In his view, there were 5 good pieces of legislation enacted. He was obviously happy with the $1.3 billion education budget and the passage of his budget isolation bill. But he was also pleased with the property inheritance bill, the congressional redistricting bill, and the co-employee liability bill. Governor James says the co-employee bill was needed to make Alabama more competitive with other southern states in seeking new industry. The bill essentially will prevent any liability suits stemming from accidents or injury on the job if the employee is covered by workman's compensation. But that bill is a constitutional amendment that will face ratification by the voters next year. There was a moderate attempt in the Senate last night to filibuster that bill by a group of blacks who called the proposal an anti-employee bill. That only temporarily held up its passage and the passage of the education budget in the Senate. The education budget snag was easily handled as the House overwhelmingly adopted the governor's amendment tacking on a conditional $3.7 million for educator hospital medical insurance. The Senate had to wait until it could break the co-employee filibuster to adopt the amended budget and end its major responsibilities for the session. The House was then faced with agreeing to the Senate changes to the co-employee bill before it could adjourn. Opponents of the co-employee bill in the House raised a procedural point in adopting the co-employee bill, hoping to kill it, but the House adopted those changes anyway. Within an hour, the special session was over. There will be more special sessions, one specifically to deal with the reapportioning of House and Senate districts, and Governor James is beginning the groundwork for another reform session to deal with the restructuring of control of higher education and the mission of the State Board of Education. That special session is tentatively set to begin September the 14th. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The probation would be put into effect at institutions where fewer than 70% of the students pass the appropriate Alabama teacher certification exam. The results of the first test, given in June, show that statewide, 77% of the students passed while 23% failed. One of the schools that could be slated for probation is Alabama State University. Out of 81 ASU students who took the test, only 11 passed. But ASU President Levi Watkins says those figures are misleading because some of those who took the exam were sophomores and juniors. Watkins says a school board resolution isn't necessary to improve the teacher training program at ASU, but he says more funding, faculty, and resources are.
I commend them on the effort, but I don't think you can sit around a board table and remake an educational institution, nor do I think you can sit around that board table and upgrade that institution. It has to be done with funds and faculty and resources.
Mobile County Board of Education Chairman Dan Alexander says the ASU scores are ridiculously low and the board needs to take tough action against those teachers who can't read or write or don't know their subject area. The probation would be in effect for a year, during which time the school would be given a chance to solve its problems. If the test scores still don't improve, the board can then rescind approval for the teacher program. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
The report contains an extensive outline of what's been done during the 90-day stay Judge Hobbs granted on May 20th. Shortly after that stay was granted, Governor James formed a committee made up of a representative from each of the state's colleges and universities, with the responsibility of not only discussing the issues surrounding the ASU merger suit, but also addressing the issues raised in the Department of Education's findings. In the report, the committee proposes a plan for resolving course duplication by placing that responsibility on the Alabama Commission on Higher Education. The committee also deals with the enhancement of the state's traditionally black institutions by minimizing further desegregation and increasing white student enrollment. The progress report hasn't been approved by the governor, AIC, or any of the boards of trustees of each of the colleges and universities. The report is expected to go to the governor soon, and in the meantime, the committee will continue to work on the plan, which eventually will be sent to the Department of Education. The deadline for that plan to be established and in place is December 31st of this year. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
We are kind of at a standstill on it. I've got 10 days to decide whether I want to use my power of veto or not on this resolution. And I do have that power. And I would like to talk to these council members and try to get something straightened out.
This rate increase. They have signed these petitions with sad faces in their faces and concern for their families on its people. Mr. Commissioner, couldn't possibly get to every...
Commission President Billy Joe Kemp wasn't happy with an Alabama Power Company motion requesting the PSC staff specify what it considers to be the issues in the current case and its position. The commission denied the motion, saying the staff's role in the case isn't any different than in past cases. Kemp says his staff will continue to assist the commission in evaluating this case and the magnitude of pending rate cases. The power company also challenged the way the PSC staff is being reorganized. It's concerned that its due process may be violated if the staff acts as both adversary and advisor to the commission. Company attorneys say they don't object to the new public staff, just to their dual role. But Camp pointed out the reorganized staff doesn't become effective until November 1st and says it doesn't concern the current rate case. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News at the PSC.
The probation would be put into effect at institutions where fewer than 70% of the students pass the appropriate Alabama teacher certification exam. The results of the first test, given in June, show that statewide, 77% of the students passed while 23% failed. One of the schools that could be slated for probation is Alabama State University. But ASU President Levi Watkins says a school board resolution isn't necessary to improve the teacher training program at ASU, but he says more funding, faculty, and resources are.
I commend them on the effort, but I don't think you can sit around a board table and remake an educational institution, nor do I think you can sit around that board table and upgrade that institution. It has to be done with funds and faculty and resources.
Mobile County Board of Education Chairman Dan Alexander says the ASU scores are ridiculously low, and the board needs to take tough action against those teachers who can't read or write or don't know their subject area. The probation would be in effect for a year, during which time the school would be given a chance to solve its problems. If the test scores still don't improve, the board can then rescind approval for the teacher program. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
And not only will I sit down and stop trying to sway my colleagues in the Senate to vote against this bill, but I will vote in favor. The Alabama Development Office put out that kind of organized outline here, and I'm just talking off the top of my head and a couple of my bridges.
Now, other senators want to know what y'all's intentions are, because I'm going to have 3 senators lined up here to sit with those of you that's with you home, and then other people are going to be permitted to go eat, because I'm going to instruct who takes my place not to take any.
First of all, I have been assured by the Department of Revenue and later redeemed that redemption is not properly recorded. Property owners can come up with it through the spring.
Is able to enact legislation that will have
I know, but see, I don't want to leave because what I'm doing, I'm not engaging in extended debate here.
So anybody who wishes to engage in extension, they can be permitted to do so. And if they wear out before 8 o'clock, we are already in recess by virtue of that vote, and we'll come back at 8 o'clock, reconvene to continue the debate on this measure, or ask us to take the vote on third reading and the exercise.
And all I have to do, so you can hear what the intent of my motion is being, and
You have before you in Jefferson County.
The suit is being filed in Montgomery County Circuit Court by the State Teachers Retirement Systems Board of Control. One of the primary defendants is Retirement Systems Secretary-Treasurer David Bronner, who at one time acted as Governor James' finance director. The Board of Control and Bronner are accusing Finance Director Rex Rayner, Governor James, and Comptroller Tom Braswell of underfunding the teachers' retirement system. Handling the case for Bronner is John Papanastis, a former finance director, and co-counsel Bobby Siegel. The suit stems from the legislature's appropriation to the system for next year, which was included in the education budget adopted earlier this week. The legislature shorted the recommended figure by $2.4 million. Bronner and the Board of Control contend a formula sets out how much money will be needed, even though one factor of the formula is a projected guess of teacher payroll. Finance Director Rex Rayner told the board earlier this week that such a suit would be premature because a firm figure of teacher payroll will be known in October. Before then, he says, you don't know if the $2.4 million shortfall will actually underfund the real needs. But Board of Control Chairman Paul Hubbard says it's the principle of not meeting the projected figure and not the amount of the shortfall that the suit aims to address. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
When we think in terms of our small income, and as it must be distributed among our utility bills, medicine, and food and what have you, unless we can get some relief, I don't see how we can exist.
The Lifeline plan that the League is proposing would provide for a 30% discount on certain utility bills for the needy, sick and disabled, elderly, and the blind.
There are a large number of physically handicapped people who live on a meager Social Security disability income due to the fact that they are unable to go to places of employment even if they find jobs.
So you think the discount would be a good way for you and others?
It would be a great help to the physically handicapped people who are on limited incomes.
President of the League, Reuben Hannon, says these people are the victims of galloping inflation, utility bills, and taxation. Hannon says the Lifeline rates are the brightest concept to emerge from the present energy crisis. Several states, including Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, have adopted the plan. Hearings on the rates will continue. The Commission has until October 18th to reach a decision. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
It's terrible. I speak for myself. I've been wearing this uniform for 28 and a half years. From duty last night with pay, but since former here the 2.5 years, well, I'd say a fair record. We're not above the law, just like anyone else. And this Montgomery Police Department is one that found this and made this arrest. And we try to, if we find one of our own doing wrong, certainly we want to clear it as soon as possible because it reflects on me and every other officer down here.
Starting Tuesday, elementary school students and those buying lunch at a reduced price will pay 20 cents more, while junior and senior high school students will pay 25 cents more. Now, elementary lunches will cost $1.10, junior and senior high lunches $1.25, and reduced lunches 40 cents. The increase comes after a similar increase just last year and is a result of lunchroom funding cuts on the national level. Several months ago, when school officials first learned of the cuts, they thought lunches might have to go up 60 and 65 cents per student. But some good news came about a month ago when school officials learned that the cuts wouldn't be as drastic in the areas of commodities and reimbursements. The lunch price increase was recommended by a school board committee made up of parents, school principals, supervisors, and superintendents. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News. School Superintendent Henry Adair says Montgomery schools will get about the same amount of money that was appropriated this fiscal year before proration. There had been some concern that the school system's accreditation would be in danger because of a lack of funds, but Adair says now that funding has been restored to the 80-81 level, the accreditation should be intact. Finance Director Joe Piazza says the increase in funding will allow the school system to be able to go back to a full maintenance program, allow money for instructional supplies, and money to replace old school buses. He says funding in all these areas had to be cut because of proration. But Adair says the new budget has some bad points, like cuts in the school board's special education and driver's education appropriations by $3 million each. In other business, the board approved an increase in school lunches. Elementary school lunches will go up 20 cents, junior and senior high lunches 25 cents, and reduced lunches 20 cents. Now elementary students will pay $1.10, junior and senior high students $1.25, and students buying reduced lunches will pay 40 cents. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
The SEC Skyriders made their first stop in Auburn. First time in recent memory we've made the eastward swing out of Birmingham on opening day. Freshman coach Pat Dye was with the Riders in his press conference for about 70 minutes answering questions. One of the questions Ben Bird of the Knoxville Journal put to him was, what was his coaching philosophy? The answer was, I believe we have to win the physical aspects of the game, play defense, and run the football. The Riders seemed impressed with Dye's straightforward manner, his confident approach. On that, he said, we want to build a base this year for future success. We're not immediately concerned with how many we win or lose. On the field in the afternoon, it was Auburn's last day in shorts. Auburn's touted freshman quarterbacks Clayton Buford and Ken Hobby were getting a lot of attention, and freshman fullback Ron O'Neal, 5'11", 255 pounds. He was an eye catcher. He could figure heavily in Auburn's plan this year. Defense is the essence of SEC football, and defensive tackle Edmund Nelson is ready to see what he and his teammates can do.
I'll be frank with you, I'm ready to put the pads on a little bit.
What does the defense got to do to help this team this year?
We have to go out and play fundamentally sound football. Every play, every snap, we have to get 11 folks to the football and surround it and just play tough, technically sound football.
Do you have confidence that you can correct the problems that this team had on defense last year and do a better job?
I think we have, because I think this year we're going to be a lot more technically sound altogether. And being a fundamentally sound football team, defensive-wise, I think we can stop a lot of the herky-jerky stuff that kind of beat us, you know, in the last final minutes. And also, I think we're going to be in a lot better shape this year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing just exactly what the defense can do.
We'll be reporting from the University of Florida tomorrow night on the SEC Skyriders Tour. This is Phil Snow in Auburn, Alabama.
Valentina Edelman is a Jew. Her Jewish faith is a very important part of her life. But as a Soviet Jew, she says life was hard.
What would happen if a group were together and they were caught in the the process of maybe having a meeting, a religious meeting? What could happen?
Well, they'll call you to the KGB office and ask a few questions, and then there's the best chance to go to jail. You cannot wear anything, any signs of religion.
Valentina now proudly wears the Star of David, something she could have been imprisoned for in the Soviet Union since religion is prohibited.
It was very a big thing for me, a sign of freedom, a sign of my feelings that I'm Jewish and I'm not ashamed of it. When I came to the United States, Mary gave me a Star of David as the
one you're wearing?
Yes, and I wear it all the time. It just means to me more than religious sign, more than Star of David. It means to me freedom of my religion, freedom of everything. And she also has one like this, exactly like mine, for my sister. And she cannot send this to my sister now because my sister cannot wear it, and I'm not sure it will be able to get through the mail, but as soon as my sister will come, I will give her one.
Valentina says her faith is one of the things that brought her to the United States. She says being able to worship openly and freely is a wonderful feeling. Dan Black, WSFA TV News.